obviously you played on a synthetic pitch at Tamworth, but as you just said, every pitch is different. Is there anything you can take from that experience going into it?
No, it's very different. The surroundings are different, the circumstances are different, the opposition's different. And, like I said, they're all very different. I mean, when I was up in Scotland, there was 2, maybe 3 different artificial pitches, and they were all very, very different in the way they played. So it's all kind of unique. I think the key to it is you obviously understand that it changes the game, but not to sort of let it become too much of a focus. Ultimately, if we do the things we need to do that we did last night in terms of our organisation and our discipline, then irrespective of the surface, we'll still, be a hard team to stop. So, but, it does change the game. You have to take that into account. There are things you need to do a little bit differently. But it's every away venue's got its, Frankfurt's surface is brilliant, but there's different challenges at Frankfurt. It's not the surface, it's something else. So every away game in Europe has got its challenges.
And you talked about the importance of players who are fit to contributing. Richarlison had a really good impact in that first half last night. We know he's been injured for so much this season. I wanted to ask, particularly with the doubt over Dom, what kind of place is he in physically? How much is he sort of really hungry to play a big role in this season?
He's in great shape, and last night, I went a bit conservative with him because playing out left is different, and I could see that he was just working so hard for the team, and he's such a, he gives everything he has, and I just didn't want to push him beyond the limit, knowing sort of what we've got ahead. He probably could have played another 10, 15 minutes, but he's in great physical condition. He's played 90 minutes already. He's backing up in games. And he's really desperate. He's hungry to really contribute at this stage, and he's a great asset for us. He's such a handful in the box, and like I said, whatever Richie has to give, he'll give it every time. Whether it's 5 minutes, whether it's 90 minutes, he will give every little bit of himself. And obviously Dom's a really important player for us. We saw that last night. If I had Richie on the bench, it would have been great to throw him on in that last bit, but he plays such a crucial role for us. So both of them are really important, and having them both in this run-in, again, we've got to balance off, how much we use them. And I'm always sort of, history tells you're wary of players who've missed a lot of football in a given year about their ability to back up consistently, and we've kind of been careful about all our players, that have been out for a while. But he's certainly in great physical condition now, and it's going to be hugely important for us.
And just lastly, this might be the media cutting off his nose to spite his face with stories and where it comes from, but you have mentioned the leak before, and yesterday with Lucas's injury, it was flying around social media beforehand, before it was revealed later. Just where are you at when it comes to this whole thing?
Look, I've said before, I think it's not helpful. It's not helpful to our club, not for any other reason, but it's information you give to oppositions, information that they can use against you. So, but we live in a world where those kind of things have gone out the window. You guys live it every day. People just want to be the first, so whether it's credible information or not, they just want to be the first out there. They just get it out there, and they feel like they've achieved something, even if it's totally off base or totally wrong. Like I said, I used to love your profession. I did. Because I was an avid reader, voracious reader, and I used to love that people would double check and triple check their sources before they actually committed to something. And unfortunately, that world doesn't exist anymore. And it's not necessarily journalists, because it's just anybody now. They can literally just say whatever they like, and pretty much, even if it's wildly wrong, no one will pull them up for it, and they'll do it the next day. So it's not helpful. And like I said, some of it's just to protect the players themselves, because you can imagine, like, Lucas was devastated. He didn't want to deal with it, and we didn't want to make it public, as much not about the opposition, but just to give him the time to sort of process it, because he's a young man who's, he'd had such a high in the week. He'd signed a new deal, he's playing well, his whole family was out here looking forward to the game. We wanted to protect him more than anything else, but like I said, those kind of, levels of decency and respect don't exist anymore.
Dom?
And it's felt like for a succession of sort of Thursdays now, people have been talking about how your season comes down to a single game, and home legs and away legs, because of how little has been left to play for with regards to the Premier League.
Yeah.
Can I just ask what that experience has been like for you and for your team?
Look, I think we've kind of understood that that's the space we're in now for a little while, and I think if you look at the players, performances, I think if it was affecting them, I think you would have seen that in the big games. I think they've performed really well in Europe, even though obviously our league form has been nowhere near where it should be, and there's obviously a narrative around that and kind of how we're going. And so, but I think the players have been really good at sort of making sure that this opportunity that exists. Like I said, we could have been having a great season and be, I don't know, third or fourth in the table, whatever. But the opportunity is the same. Whether you're third or fourth in the table or 15th or 16th, it's still the semi-final of a Europa League, and you still, this club has experienced so much in the last 15 years and longer in Europe where they know they don't come around often. So you want to take it. What's happening in your season almost becomes irrelevant when the opportunity presents itself, and it's an opportunity this group of players has earned. They've been outstanding throughout the campaign, even though we've had injuries. We've had some young guys who've had to carry us through at different times, and that's where the focus has been on making sure that we give ourselves the best opportunity to take, what's before us. And not let it slip by because of, people's perceptions of, what our season's been like.
It must have been a weird experience for you though, because those European matches have been where the stakes have been at, but the intervening matches in the Premier League, many people see the Premier League as the best league in the world. They've been full throttle football matches that you've got a hell of a lot less riding on, given the context of the season. It's a weird thing, isn't it?
Well, I don't see it that way. I mean, I'd hate to think people don't think I've been preparing the same I always have for these games and want to win these games. Like I said, we were hugely disappointed with Liverpool, notwithstanding the fact that they were outstanding and they have been all year, and it was always going to be a difficult day, whatever sort of way we went. But I was really hard on the players, the day after the game, and I wasn't really sure how they'd react to it. But I just felt like we need to feel that pain, but at the same time, like I said, then you put that to one side and concentrate on the task at hand. And it's as I keep saying, it's irrespective of our season or what people's perception of our season is. We've got an opportunity to do something special, and I don't want that to let that slip because of us losing focus on what's important.
Just finally, and following on from that, do you expect that you and your players will be able to enjoy the Premier League running, or will that, potentially making that final and winning that silverware sort of impact whether you're able to enjoy inverted commas?
Well, I mean, we can enjoy it if we can improve and get some wins. That's the challenge. West Ham away on the weekend is always a tough game. It's a derby and means a lot to our supporters. So again, we can certainly go into that game with the right mindset to try and get some joy out of the rest of our season, because I think that helps. With the way our supporters feel, for sure. They've had to ride the waves as well. They're disappointed, and then they have to pick themselves up knowing there's a big game coming up. So I think for the whole club, if we can get some positive results between now and the end of the season, I think it'll be helpful.
Paul?
Just on Richarlison, following up on that, how pleased would you be if he does get that one moment to make a real impact here? Because it feels like he's been through quite a lot, and he still needs that one moment, perhaps the Spurs fans to really appreciate it, because some of them perhaps don't at the moment.
Yeah, but again, it's not through a lack of trying with Richie, and like I said, it's probably preceded me, but he's really had a stop-start sort of career here at Spurs. He's never really got a run. To be fair, when he has, he's always made an impact. I remember last year when we gave him a really decent run in the middle of the season, he was scoring goals and making a massive impact until he got injured, and even this year, every time he's played, like last night, he always impacts the game. So it'd be great for him because he's been through a tough 2 or 3 years, and but that's the beauty of football, and sometimes the beauty of life. If you keep turning up, keep doing the right things, sometimes it just comes your way.
And you said you were pretty angry with them after the Liverpool game. Do you think they listen to you in those situations? Do you tend to have people in the squad who give a little bit back? Is that what you like to have?
What do you reckon, mate? What do you think? Take a wild guess. No, the boys are good. They're good. They take the feedback. It's feedback. It's not, it's not personal. It's not like I'm. But as I said, it's a pretty young group in many respects, and I'd hate to think we get used to, not performing at the level we need to. Like I said, Liverpool were outstanding. We could have played the best that we can and still not come away with a win. But it was just a few things within that I just, didn't feel we handled really well. And I want them to grow, and I don't think. There's growth unless you're honest with people, and I try always to be honest with the group. And there's always the danger, especially when we've got such a big game, that you might get some noses out of joint, and that's not the right way to prepare. But I'm confident with this group that they're really bought into what we're doing, and they have belief in whatever I tell them, whether it's positive or otherwise feedback, that it's for the right reasons. It's, like I said, it's never personal, and they're pretty good on taking it on board.
For so much of last night, it was a great performance, as you said, it was a great atmosphere as well, but it did feel like after the goal, there was suddenly a kind of a nervousness around the team and the stadium. It feels here like people are very quick to kind of fear the worst, they play brilliantly for 80 minutes, but then suddenly everyone's worrying about impacts. I mean, how do you, in the next week, prevent that sort of seeping into the players?
I don't think I haven't seen it in the players. I know what you're saying, and it has been. I mean, it was evident, sort of. Even when we played RZ in the second game, we got off to a great start. Then they score, and all of a sudden there's a real nervousness in the stadiums. But I thought the players handled it really well. And similarly with Frankfurt, we go a goal down early, and there's a real possibility of it sort of falling apart. But I just think because of, people are their experiences, and Tottenham supporters have had some real sort of near misses for a long time. So there's always this safeguarding of not getting too excited about what's happening. But part of creating a winning culture is not to fall into that trap. Winners don't think about things in that way. They don't think about what could possibly go wrong. They have a real clear clarity around what they need to do to win, and I'm trying to create that with this group of players. That I've said before that the narrative around the club is not positive at all. Whether you follow the club or not, there's always some sort of negative connotation to everything that happens at the club. So, but that's existed for a very long time, and you need to break through that. And I'm trying to create a culture within the group, at least, that that can't guide our destiny, because that's almost self-fulfilling. If you expect something to go wrong, it will. So you try and rail against that, and how you do that is just clear-eyed focus on what's important.
Because Tottenham historically, in the last 10 years, I think 3 finals, 4 semis, when they've got to these points, but never got over the line. I don't know how. I guess it's a new group of players, new manager, but equally there's still a culture at the club, isn't there?
It's not really. I don't know if it's a culture at the club. It's a culture around the club. Well, I get that, and then sort of the narrative around the club, but it doesn't necessarily. Like I said, if you accept that, then you're kind of almost self-prophesizing what's going to happen. I don't accept that. It's not. Yes, the club's been in whatever you said, 3 finals and 4, but that's not me. I've been in 1 semi-final, and this is my second. So I don't look at it as me falling short consistently at this football club. So it's different if I was here for a while and that'd been happening, and certainly for this group of players it's similar. What we've done this year is, like I said, we got to semi-final of one competition, we fell short, we're in the semi-final of another competition, we've got ourselves in a good position to get to a final, and we've got to treat that on its merits. There's no point dwelling on sort of what's happened in the past. It can't, like I said, can't guide your future within that. And with all these things, there's really only one remedy. You've got to win. You can talk and you can, try and change things, but winning is the remedy for all these things, and that's what we're trying to do.
Are you practicing penalties? Just wondering. Are you practicing penalties?
Yeah, we always do. Yeah, always for these games. I think you have to prepare for everything, and people like Dom, the regular penalty takers, always practice them anyway, but the whole group will before the game.
You know your order, or do you kind of?
Yeah, we want to be organised, but sometimes on the day, again, knock on wood, but injuries happen. That order might get disrupted. People might not be feeling right. I might have substituted people out. So, but you prepare for every outcome.
We'll go with Dave and then finish with Elias.
I was just going to talk a similar lines to Tom actually, just about the atmosphere and the feeling, because it felt like this incredible tonal shift from 3-0 to 3-1 last night, and I just think a lot of us think it actually doesn't make sense because you're still firmly in charge at this time. Are you trying to sort of, can you try and control what goes on outside your bubble, or is it, as you say, is it just difficult?
No, I can't control it. I mean, fair to say I've tried, but it's a losing battle because it's, there's a lot of stuff that feeds into that, and people invariably react to it. So, if you're feeling insecure about something and then you've got 20 people telling you should be insecure, then you're going to be insecure. So I can't change that. Like I said, all I can do is control, the people who are in my orbit and make sure that, last night we played really well. It's a semi-final. We didn't underestimate Bodo. We respected the kind of football they play and the team they are. They're very strong mentally, can cope with setbacks like conceding a goal in the first 30 seconds. We knew that wasn't going to break them. The players were prepared for that. And we knew they'd be going right to the final minute, so there's always an opportunity that they may get a goal. But in between that, what we did do was nullify a lot of their threat and cause them a lot of problems. And similarly to Frankfurt, I walked away from the Frankfurt game. Okay, you're saying, well, we didn't get what we really deserved, but I love the boys' approach to it. And even though people thought, oh, now you've got to go to Frankfurt and win, and Frankfurt probably their home record's probably more compelling than Bodo's. I felt confident in that because of the way we performed, and that's what we've got to take out. Like I said, you've got to stay really, very focused on what you can control. We can't control how people feel. We can't control the anxiety of whether it's our supporters or, whatever narrative is around us. What we can control is, our behaviours and our performance.
Did you see, after that meeting that you had after Liverpool, did you see a kind of, I suppose in training and then also yesterday as well, see a kind of shift in, I suppose, attitude, mentality from that within the players?
No, not really. It wasn't the purpose of it. It was because, we'd done that before, I think before the Frankfurt games, even before the AZ game, our performances in the league weren't great. So I knew the players would shift, their mentality quickly. It was just about, I didn't want to ignore it either, because I just think it's important for our growth that we don't accept, when we don't perform at the levels we need to, because that's, we want to grow as a team. We want our young players and all our players to develop, and part of developing a winning culture is that when you don't perform at the levels that are required, that you understand that there's repercussions to that. So it wasn't about me using it as a way to get a reaction, because I knew the players would be ready for last night, and look, a few of them didn't even play against Liverpool, so it wasn't like I knew we'd get the energy we needed. When you've got guys like Romero and Bentancur and Mickey van der Ven and Pedro and all these other guys who didn't play against Liverpool, there was no issue for me about what we'd get. It wasn't about getting a reaction. It was just about, like I said, not letting a moment of learning slip just because we had a big game coming up.
And you said, I think at the start of the press that European football is very different to Premier League football, just in terms of the way that it's played. Obviously your style kind of shifted in some way yesterday, and the system was probably a little bit different. How is it different? What's different about it?
Well, many ways. I mean, you're facing teams that play different styles of football, different conditions, and different sort of knockout football. Cup football is by its nature different. I mean, it was the same in the Carabao Cup for us, and very similar in the FA Cup. There's always an edge in cup games because the implications of a loss are greater, because it probably means you're out of the tournament. So that naturally tends to games being a little bit more sort of on edge. Every moment sort of matters even more. So there's always, I think, a more conservative kind of mindset. Although, watching Inter and Barca, they defied the odds of that. They just went for it, which was brilliant to watch. But for the most part, that's how they go, and that's where it's different. Like, whether it's European football is different because of different conditions, different types of teams, but the nature of cup football or tournament football, which I've had a lot of experience in, is that you know every game there's always a little bit more of an edge than there is in league games.
Is that something you've always kind of done, like changed your approach slightly for European football? Is that something you kind of allowed?
No, I didn't. Yeah, I mean, I didn't change. We don't change approach. We approach it exactly the same way. It's just that the game makes you make adjustments because of the nature of what you're facing in terms of the opposition and the occasion. We didn't go there last night to do anything different than what we do on a weekly basis, but we knew that, tactically there was a couple of things that we would have to do differently to combat the opposition, and they would make us do differently, and we wanted to exploit that. So, but we still created bags of chances. It's not like we sat back and played counter-attacking football. Our approach is the same. We're still aggressive with our pressing. We probably didn't capitalise as much as we wanted to. Into a couple of times we won the ball in high areas, so it wasn't really much of a change. But like I said, there's little subtle things that happen because of the nature of the opponent and the competition you're in.
And I guess Madison, obviously, hoping that he's perfectly fine and fit to play again on Thursday. But not just his cup, obviously, his creative ability, which was saw a couple of great passes yesterday. But those kind of runs, third man runs off Solanke as well. That's something that seems to be really working for you in recent times in Europe.
Yeah, he's been brilliant. Like I said, the last sort of month or so he's been outstanding for us. And yeah, I mean, if you look at just even the last three Europa games, I mean, he assisted for Pedro in the first Frankfurt game. He won the penalty in the second, scored last night. He's been a massive one. So, yeah, it'll be disappointing for missing him, but it just seems to be the way our season's gone. I've said before, it feels like the whole season we've been chasing stuff and no smooth waters. So I guess for us, whatever we get this year, we'll have earned, that's for sure. And nothing will have come easy to us, that's for sure. Thanks, guys.